This evening we thought we will look at King Asa, the rise and fall of King Asa, from 2 Chronicles chapter 14 to chapter 16. It's a spiritual regression. A very sad account of how a good king started off very well and ended up very badly. Look at chapter 14, verse 11. And Asa cried to the Lord his God, O Lord, there is none like you to help between the mighty and the weak. Help us, O Lord our God, for we rely on you and in your name. We have come against this multitude. O Lord, you are our God. Let not man prevail against you. That was Asa's response to God. Anybody listening to that prayer will say, here is a man who is deeply committed to God, and look at his dependence on God. What happened when a man who is so dependent on God had a good understanding of God? All of a sudden we read, it's not all of a sudden, we find that the end of Asa's life was not good. Now as I was reading it, I also asked myself, is it possible with me that in our spiritual life we can be so high, and then all of a sudden you find things creeping into our life and we end up so badly? Now very often I ask people to do this exercise. I give them a piece of paper and ask them to write their own epitaph. You know, if you die, what do you think you want people to write about you? Now, it is a good exercise. When I asked the teachers in Davangere, in Bhadravati to do it, one teacher was very honest. She said, this is my epitaph. I am glad that you died. Never rise again. And then she read it and she broke down and she cried. And she was about 60, 62 years old. I said, why are you weeping like this? She said, I made a mess of my life and I was so bitter on the inside, and I took it out on the children, and I don't think I will get those years back. Now when King Asa died, look at what is written about him. 2 Chronicles chapter 16. Verse 12. In the 39th year of his reign, Asa was diseased in his feet, and his disease became severe. Yet, even in his disease, he did not seek the Lord, but sought help from physicians. Verse 13, and Asa slept with his fathers, dying in the 41st year of his reign. And I want us to look at his life, but there are two key verses. 2 Chronicles chapter 15, verse 2. Let me read the latter part of verse 2. The Lord is with you while you are with him. If you seek him, he will be found by you. But if you forsake him, he will forsake you. Chapter 16, verse 9. For the eyes of the Lord run to and fro throughout the whole earth, to give strong support to those whose heart is blameless toward him. You have done foolishly in this, for from now on you will have wars. That is King Asa's life. And I want us to look first how his actions pleased the Lord, and how his actions displeased the Lord, and why did he have such an ending. But look at the time at which the Lord called him. If you look at 2 Chronicles chapter 15, look at verse 4, you will see the word distress. But when in their distress they turned to the Lord. Verse 5. In those times there was no peace, for great disturbances afflicted all the inhabitants of the land. Verse 6. They were broken in pieces. Nation was crushed. Now look at that. The deteriorating situation of Israel. They were in distress. There was no peace. There was disturbances. And they were broken in pieces, and the nation was crushed. You know why? For three reasons. Look at verse 3. For Israel was without God, without a teaching priest, and without law. And as I read it, I said to myself, how important it is. The teaching of the Word is the centrality of Christian living. When there is no teaching of the Word, when our pulpits are weak, when our foundation is so weak, when our family altar is weak, we don't know what is happening. Everything there is confusion and there is chaos. And then you find there is no true God. Where God is not in the picture, there will be distress, there will be disturbances, there will be, pain. And then you find there is no law. When it talks about law, it is the Old Testament. Nothing for people to guide on, to look at. And so you find, because of the absence of these three things, there was presence of pain, struggle, disturbances, and you find nation was crushed by nation. In a situation like this, the Lord called King Asa. Look at chapter 14, verse 2. And Asa did what was good and right in the eyes of the Lord his God. Now what are some of the things that he did? What was the good thing that he did? Let me place them one by one. Verse 3. He took away the foreign altars and the high places and broke down the pillars and cut down the Asherim. The first thing you find, he demonstrated his love for God. He demonstrated his love for God, where he told the people of Israel, listen very carefully. I belong to Yahweh, I worship this God. Anything that is blasphemous, I will destroy. Anything that is against my conviction, my God, I will destroy. He took his position seriously. He took his place seriously. And he did not allow anything to interfere. The second thing you find, chapter 14 verse 4, and commanded Judah to seek the Lord, the God of their fathers, and to keep the law and the commandment. And chapter 15 verse 9 following. And he gathered all Judah and Benjamin, and those from Ephraim, Manasseh, and Simeon, who were residing with them, for great numbers had deserted to him from Israel, when they saw that the Lord his God was with him. He not only demonstrated his love for God, you find he also directed people towards God. When God places us in a place of responsibility, it is so very important for us, not that people will look at us, but the way I perform, whether it is marketing, whether it is directing, whatever it is, people will recognize that there's a God above who controls our entire life, directing people to God. That was King Asa's strength. He called the people and he said, listen, you need to worship the true God. The third thing you find, chapter 14 verse 11, and Asa cried to the Lord his God, O Lord, there is none like you to help between the mighty and the weak. Help us, O Lord our God, for we rely on you, and in your name we have come against this multitude. O Lord, you are our God. Let not man prevail against you. You'll find the third thing, he depended on God. When there was crisis, when he found that it's going to be a threat to his nation, he immediately depended on God. In a place like that, it is possible for us to lean on the other nation. to call on someone and say, hey, listen, why don't you come in? I'm going through struggles. But Asa, God putting him in that place, he immediately realized the only solution for him to face the army is to cry out to God. And in situations like that, the Lord immediately jumps in. On Saturday, I was speaking to our prayer partners, and I was looking at Jehoshaphat from 2 Chronicles chapter 20. 2 Chronicles chapter 20. Could someone read verse 6, 7 and 12?
O Lord, God of our fathers, are you not the God who is in heaven?